Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us with this live event on the Junior Astronaut Initiative Educator session. Our guest for tonight is Parshati Patel, and my name is Brent Patel. I am the Executive Director of Partners in Research. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Parshati, give her a chance to introduce herself, and go through some of the information about the Junior Astronaut Program. Over to you, Parshati.
Thank you, Brent. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here talking about the Junior Astronaut Initiative. I am an education and outreach specialist at Western's Institute for Earth and Space Exploration. We are working with the Canadian Space Agency to spread the word about junior astronauts, because it's an amazing opportunity for educators as well as students to be part of this particular initiative. And so I'll go through kind of the whole history behind it. So in February 2019, so almost like a year ago now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that Canada is going to be part of the Lunar Gateway project, which is headed by the Canadian Space Agency, by NASA, and Canadian Space Agency will be part of it in a way that we will be contributing to the Canada arm on the Lunar Gateway project. So what Lunar Gateway project is that it is basically a space station around the moon. So it's not the size of our current International Space Station that we have that orbits Earth. This will be a smaller version of the space station that will be orbiting the moon. And as you can see on the screen, we have kind of a whole host of institutions that are going to be involved in this particular project. This includes ESA, which is the European Space Agency, JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, as well as you have the Roscosmos, which is the Russian Space Agency, and then NASA, obviously. And we are contributing the robotics aspect of it as Canada and the Canadian Space Agency. And so one of the important reasons of why we actually have this Lunar Gateway is the fact that we're looking to go more into the deeper space, and in order to do that, so places like Mars, we definitely need to test and do the testing of all the technologies, make sure our missions are good enough to be done at a larger scale when we are going to Mars. So they're going to be testing a lot of these things on the surface of the moon, also when it orbits around the moon. And so we, as one of the partners, we actually have opportunity to not only contribute to the mission in the way robotics, but also, just like how we currently have Canadians visit the International Space Station and kind of research when they're there. The Canadian Space Agency, we also have an opportunity to send astronauts to the Lunar Gateway. And this is actually where the idea for the junior astronauts comes in. So as I mentioned, we will be contributing a Canada arm, which we are famous around the world for. We have it on our $5 bill. That's how proud we are of that. And so the idea is to do the similar thing for the Lunar Gateway that we did for the International Space Station. And it will not only help to build the Lunar Gateway, but because it's only going to be habited approximately 3 to 6 months out of the year, the rest of the time, the Lunar Gateway will not have anyone on board. And so they're also looking into incorporating artificial intelligence on board, so to make sure that if there are any experiments that are going on when the astronauts are not on board, they still work fine and things are okay when they come back, let's say 6 months later or 9 months later. They still have important things that they're working throughout the year. So we'll be contributing in those two aspects. But obviously, as I mentioned, we will have an opportunity to send astronauts to the Lunar Gateway and possibly land on the moon as well. And this brings into Junior Astronaut Initiative, whose objective is basically to get the youth excited about science through space, keep them informed about space careers and what it takes to be an astronaut. This is in particular very important because you can imagine, this is going to be a long-term mission, just like how we have the International Space Station. You need to ensure that, there's going to be people who are going to be working in this particular field, and especially, the youth of today know about what we are doing and how we're contributing to these upcoming missions, not only to the moon and in future to Mars. So basically informing them about the possible careers and the fact that how we as Canada are contributing to these missions. So that's kind of the objectives of this particular Junior Astronauts campaign that is led by the Canadian Space Agency. And so what they have done is in the Junior Astronauts campaign, they have actually developed activities in 3 different streams. So one of the streams is science and technology. All of these 3 streams are actually very important for any astronaut who gets, trained from, for example, Jenny Sidey-Gibbons and Joshua Kudrick, were, recently given their full astronaut status. So they have to go through training before they get their full status. And all of these 3 categories are pretty important to their everyday work. So includes science and technology, learning about all the different kinds of experiments that happen on the International Space Station. And then obviously fitness and nutrition. They need to ensure that their body is fine during, their missions when they're going up to space, but also at the same time, making sure that they're eating healthy while they're up there. And then last but not the least, we all know that these kinds of missions require working with people from a wide variety of different agencies and people with different languages. So they have developed the teamwork and communications. And I particularly love this even though I'm a scientist and I should be gravitated towards science and technology stream. But I love the teamwork and communication stream because it not only brings in some sciences, but also allows students to gain those 21st century global competencies that are very important for them as they grow into learning about these skills. So each of these streams actually have a lot of these activities that the teachers and students are encouraged to do in their classrooms. And I'll show you guys an example of one of the activities. But if you look at the Junior Astronaut website, you will see that, they have all the different information about different streams that I just talked about, how educators can actually win a visit from an astronaut, and I'll go a little bit deeper in that in a bit. Students who actually do these activities get to attend a camp. And so, it's a very simple, very interactive website, not only just for educators, but also for students. And the most easiest way is to just register. It's free. There's no charge for it. You just go ahead and register yourself, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. One of the most important things in part of this campaign is to get kids, up and running and, doing fitness activities, but at the same time, develop those hands-on activities and work through those activities as well. So you will see these are some of the example images from the activities when they were conducted at the headquarters and in and around Montreal. And then obviously one of the most interesting is when you actually do one of these activities. So for educators, if you do at least one activity from any stream, doesn't matter which one of the streams it is, if you do one, you actually get to put your name in a draw where they will be picking schools from all provinces and territories where the astronauts will be visiting these schools. And it's not just open to your classroom, it's up to you. You can open it to the entire school. As you see in this picture, we have Jeremy Hansen, who visited a school with almost, I can think everyone in the school is probably present in the gym because, who doesn't want to see and hear from an astronaut? So very cool opportunity. And some of these activities, like I'll talk about, they're very minimal in material, and some are very short. So you are able to do that. Some are a longer period, like you could be doing over the week. And then for students who actually do one activity in each of the streams, not just one activity in general, but one from each of the stream, they will actually be able to put their name in a draw to go to the Canadian Space Agency headquarters to do a summer camp. So this is an example of what was done in the past, and kids will get an opportunity to not only interact with the scientists at the Canadian Space Agency, but engineers, astronauts, get trained like an astronaut, like any astronaut would. So that's an amazing opportunity, and they'll be choosing 3 to 4 students per province and territory. So each of the, they need one activity from each of the streams. So that's kind of the most important difference between an educator winning an astronaut trip and a student doing all 3 activities and putting their name in the draw for the camp. So this is what their website looks like. This is the link I put here right here in the bottom. And, if you just go in the About page, you can learn a lot about, what the campaign is about. Kind of, I gave you a brief introduction on that and what are the different things that the educators, the parents, different organizations, as well as students could do. And this is how their form looks like. So it's a very simple form with, just simple basic things, how to contact you, kind of where your school is. If you have any issues with the address, please feel free to reach out to us. There are ways that, we can help you. And, if you have any questions, either CSA or any one of us would be more than happy to help you with that. But it's a very short form that you can fill out and get registered. And then one really cool thing about their website is that it actually displays, this is an old map, but this actually displays all the organizations, school or private organization, nonprofits, student groups that have registered themselves on the Junior Astronaut website. So you as an educator may only do 1 activity, but if the students want to do 2 more in different streams to ensure that they're able to put their name in the draw, they can actually go onto this map and look, okay, where in, let's say, London, Ontario, where I'm based, which are the other organizations that are actually doing the activity. And they can always go and reach out to them and be like, I need these 2 activities. Are you doing these 2 activities? If so, can I participate? So this will allow them to be able to do all 3 of them and, be able to kind of get their certificates to be able to put their name in the draw. So kind of going into these 3 different streams, I'll show you guys an example of what the Canadian Space Agency has prepared and how you as an educator, when you go in, what you will be seeing. So, there are a host of, this is just example of the fitness and nutrition one right here in the orange, and we have the teamwork and communication ones in the green right here. And you can see there are all these activities that are listed, and they also tell you, how difficult they are, what the duration likely is, as well as the materials you're going to need. So for example, the Survivor Moon, it's not very hard. You can do that in 90 minutes and it requires a minimal amount of material. So depending on how much time you have and what kind of resources are available in your classroom, you can cater and make sure that you're able to do at least 1, because there are tons to choose from. And so I'll just go over kind of, when you go into these activities, what they look like. So there's 2 versions. You can just go through the website, or you can download a PDF and use it to kind of prepare for the activity. So here is a Dragon's Den activity example that I'm just showing you. You can see that, it not only describes the activity, it gives you kind of the breakdown of how much time you will have to invest in this, as well as kind of what materials you are going to be needing. It also lays out kind of the objectives of this particular activity. So if you want to make sure that it connects to your curriculum, or if you want to ensure that, you meet some of your learning goals, you can definitely use that as a basis. And then all these activities have a background. So if you are not familiar with that particular topic, they have a lot of background. There's also appendix where there's more information. They also have instructions for you, so you don't have to start from scratch. You can just follow these instructions and basically do the activity. And in this particular Dragon's Den activity, they've actually given a lot more detail in the appendix section of, what it looks like. So this particular activity just is exactly like what you would see on Dragon's Den, which is the show on air, as well as Shark Tank. And the idea is that students actually pitch an idea to one of these panels. So they have 4 different panels, actually 5 different panels. And they just choose from one of these panels and decide to, basically learn how to pitch, and then pitch an idea and make sure the rest of the class acts as a panel and kind of, acts as, okay, if I were to invest into this, how could you fix this? Or how could you make sure that this is going to work? So it's a very interactive teamwork activity that I particularly like. And so, you can use appendix as kind of your starting point for these activities as well. And so in terms of kind of important dates, so if you are planning to do at least one activity or have already done one activity, you have until February 28th to put your name in the draw. And so in addition to registering, you do have to go online on the website, log in and fill out this form that says, I've done this particular activity on this date, etc. It's just a short survey form that they do need in order to ensure that a particular teacher has done an activity, and that deadline is February 28th, so it's coming up pretty fast. And then for students to actually do all three activities, one in each stream, and put their submissions in for the draw for the camp, that deadline is March 29th. So they still do have some more time to finish activities if you still want to continue doing activities or finish all three by March 29th. So all students have that opportunity. In March 2020, they will be announcing which schools have won the astronaut visit, and then they will be scheduling those visits between March and June, and they will be visiting obviously before the school year is over. And then the camp participants, their names will be released in April 2020 as soon as in March 29th, the registration closes. And then the camp will happen either in July or August of 2020. I particularly like to highlight this particular slide in all my presentations because there is, people always think about is astronaut the only way to be involved in science? And I would say no. As an astrophysicist, I can say that I'm involved in space domain in a completely different career than people can think about. So if you could be a doctor and be part of space, you could be a kinesiologist and be part of space, you could be a biologist, and these are all, some of these are not very very direct careers that people think about when you say, oh, this is what you could do in space. Generally engineers, astronomers, and astronauts are thought to be the only people working in space. So I do like to bring out this slide and kind of highlight the kind of variety. And this is actually just a very small slice too. There are a lot of people who work in industry. There are a lot of people who work in topics such as Earth observation. You have law, policy. There are tons of these different areas that students would actually work in. And so I'll quickly go over one of the activities. This is one of my favorite activities from the teamwork and communication, and it's called Patchmaker or Patchmaker Make Me a Patch. As you see here on the screen, the junior astronaut patch was made, and as the patch is supposed to symbolize what it means. So whether it's for an astronaut, their mission, for this campaign, what this campaign means. So, they're looking to find junior astronauts. They have a young, youth on the picture with a Canadian flag. They're supposed to be Canadian, so there's a Canada. And because it's connected to the Lunar Gateway and they're planning to put humans around the moon or on the moon, there is moon in the picture as well. And you obviously have the Canadian Space Agency or the space agency that is representing. And so, this activity is pretty neat because it not only involves being creative and letting students kind of imagine what they could be doing. So just there are two different kinds of patches actually. The astronaut patch is individual to the astronauts who actually design their own patches for the mission, and then there's a mission patch which is worked with all the three or four astronauts that are going up to space during that time. So a general astronaut patch would have three different things. They would have their name, obviously, the space agency name, and then an image that means something. And, just like I described the junior astronaut image that is kind of related to the campaign that is happening, I'll give you and show you guys examples of what other patches exist. So this is Davidson Jack's patch that he drew just before he went to the International Space Station in December of 2018. And what his patch means is, you can see a few different things. There is the compass rose, which is very prominent, as you can see right here. And that kind of signifies that, we are guided explorers. We have always used the North Star, and we're amongst, we're based, we're using them for our exploration. He also has these four colors right here. these are actually signifying innovation. So it has the red is for energy and passion, orange is for creativity, white is for science, and blue is actually for the international collaboration, because as you know, International Space Station is a collaborative effort. He also has four of these stars in the background, and this actually signifies a pool of talent that actually works behind a particular astronaut. You may see one astronaut up in the International Space Station, but there are hundreds of people here working on the ground to ensure, you know, everything that they do. They're prepared for the mission, etc. So he wanted to emphasize that in his patch to thank all those people who are helping him kind of go to the International Space Station and do the science he's there for. And then he also has the Earth in the background as well. You know, when you go to the International Space Station, you're looking back at Earth, it kind of shows you the fragility or how important it is to the people not only living on Earth, but also on the International Space Station. So that kind of signifies looking back at Earth and how space exploration allows us to do that. So they are very meaningful images. You know, astronauts get to design their own, and these are just some of the examples of the previous astronauts' mission patches. And here are other ones: Chris Hadfield, you know, Dave Williams. This in particular I like to highlight because, you know, they have Canadarm as a prominent thing in their patch, and that's obviously because they were working with the Canadarm while they were there. I especially like Dr. Dave Williams' patch because, you know, it talks about how he was using the Canadarm to fix the International Space Station. So it's a pretty neat, pretty well thought out patch, and this is what we get students to think about. Okay, you know, if you were an astronaut, what would your mission look like? Where would you want to go? And I, you know, I personally don't like to restrict them to just Moon or Mars. I say, you know, think out loud, think wild, be creative. We have had students who do things like black holes or going to other galaxies, and, you know, they're super creative in what their mission would actually look like. And so we asked the students to, you know, take some time and draw their own astronaut patch. And then as you know, as I mentioned earlier that astronauts only have their own patches, but then they have a mission patch. So mission patch generally signifies what it means for the entire mission, you know, all astronauts collectively, what they hope their mission is. So basically this mission patch is the one that, again, David, along with his crewmates designed. And in this one, it's very similar. They also have, you know, instead of just one astronaut name, it's obviously all crew members' names. There's the mission number. Each of the missions have their numbers. And you know, David's crew mission was 58. So that's how it was symbolized on the image. And then again, a very meaningful image. So for this particular expedition 58, they had Earth below. Again, you're looking back at Earth when you're at the International Space Station. A lot of these patches you will see have the compass rose, again, for that guided experience of, you know, being the guided explorer. And then obviously they have the passing of the International Space Station in the background, and that kind of represents, you know, their kind of work that they're going to be doing on the International Space Station looking back at Earth. So you know, you could either divide the students into groups to make the crew member patches, mission patches, but alternatively, I have actually suggested some of these to some of the classes that I've been to, is that the class collectively can come up with their mission for the year, and they can create this this patch together, and kind of have the teacher's name and kind of, you know, the school name or the class or the grade, and have come up with this idea of what their mission is going to look like for the year, have it creatively represented, and then stick it onto the door, because I find that very interesting, that, you know, when you're entering every day, you're seeing this mission that you have for your class, and the students have the mission for their class throughout the year. So, you know, it's up to you how you want to do it, but I think it's a great, again, teamwork and communicating what individually all the students want to see themselves do throughout the year. So I hope I gave you quite a lot of information of what the Junior Astronauts is and what the objectives are for this particular campaign. And I just want to kind of highlight again the important dates. If you are planning to do at least one activity by February 28th, please make sure that you are putting your names into the contest, and then encourage the students to do one activity from the 2 other streams, and you know, they should be able to submit their names into the draw for the camp as well. So I'm more than happy to take any questions you may have now.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Parshati. I'm just going to stop the sharing. I was hoping that maybe you could tell the participants a little bit about the event on February 11th.
Yeah, so the February 11th is the International Day of Girls and Women in Science. It's kind of a day where we ensure that we talk about and promote how important it is for girls and women to be part of the field of science. And so all around Canada, we're trying to host a lot of different events. You know, here in London in particular, we are going to be hosting an event at the Cronin Observatory where we'll have lots of, you know, different panelists who are going to be involved in talking about their experience. I know Partners in Research is doing a session with the Canadian Space Agency. We also have a lot of other partners who are doing events across Canada. So please do check them out, and, you know, if possible, get your students to participate in these to not only learn about the campaign, but also kind of learn from, you know, girls and women in space who are actively working, and hear from them.
Yeah, that's a fabulous initiative. I'm really glad that we're doing that. And as you mentioned, Partners in Research is doing a session on February 11th at 1 o'clock with Magdalena Weiris from the Canadian Space Agency. She supports space utilization sector within the CSA as a project engineer on the RadarSat constellation mission. So we're really looking forward to doing a live event with Magdalena next week. I think most of the questions that we got, you answered a lot about deadlines that were coming up. Hopefully educators can get an activity done and get registered before the end of February to qualify for the visit from a space expert or astronaut. But other than that, I think we're in good shape. So thank you very much, Parshati, for the session tonight.
Thank you for having me. I hope everyone will, you know, we only have 3.5 more weeks, and it's only one activity it takes for you to do in the classroom to get yourself put in the draw. So please, please make sure you do it. Fabulous.
Next week, in addition to the Magdalena Weiris session on February 12th, we're also doing a session with Elisa Dong. Elisa does research on earthquakes, and her relationship back to the space project is looking at Martian seismic data to better understand the Martian interior. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. So again, thank you to Parshati, and thank you to all of our participants tonight. Take care, and we hope to see you on a webinar again soon. Good night.